That means you have mastered the subject. Also, as I told you, these Q bank is customizable. That is, if you're studying a particular topic, you can select questions from the same topic so that it is going to be an active recall of whatever you have learned for the day. Coming to the practical sessions, our aim here in Auricle is to be the bridge for you for practicals, okay? So what do you understand when I say that be the bridge? It is that usually in colleges, practicals are taught at a certain time, and then you have certain, time gap in between when you'll get that study holidays, you're preparing for your prof exams, and later you go and give your practical exams. So in that bridge gap, people usually tend to forget practicals. So to cover that bridge, we in Auricle are going to give you hands-on experience by engaging you all in interactive sessions that are going to simulate real case scenarios. Apart from this, we'll also guide you to the viva voce questions that can potentially come in your exams, as well as spotters. As you know, spotters can come from any chapter and they're innumerable. No, we have tried to cover each and every spotters that can probably come in your exams. And by using this Auricle's practical session, you can definitely excel in your practical exams. Now, coming to the various subscription plans that are there, we have Foundation Plan, Advanced Learning Plan, Complete Learning Plan, and the Ultimate MBBS Plan. Coming to the Foundational Plan, this is there for a period of 3 months, where you get pre-recorded classes, live classes, express exam module, practical session, Q bank, that is there available for you. Coming to the advanced learning plan, all the same things are available for you for a period of 6 months. Then it becomes advanced learning plan. Coming to the complete learning plan, you have all these available to you for a period of 12 months. And as it's complete, no, you are also getting hard copy notes set as well as one-to-one doubt clearing session. Now, when all of this is available to you for a period of 4 years, that is through and through your MBBS, you're going to be taken care by Auricle. That means you're going to choose ultimate MBBS plan. So look at all these plans and choose whichever is apt for you. Now you can use my coupon code Dr Prashi kaveri 20.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Man, I can see you in Zoom, but it live I can't see you, man.
Yeah.
On YouTube I can't see you.
I don't know.
Is there any changes in your settings, ma'am?
No.
It live I can't see you, ma'am.
Yeah.
On YouTube I can't see you. Okay, now it's visible, ma'am. You can continue.
Okay. So these are the various plans that is available for you. You can select whichever plan is apt for you and continue with your studies. Now you can use my coupon code Dr Prashi kaveri 20 to get additional discount on your subscription from Auricle. Now coming to the topic per se, we'll be discussing about thanatology. So what is thanatology? Thanatology deals with everything that has to do with death. You can select whichever plan is apt for you and continue with your studies. Now, coming to define thanatology, postmortem changes that occur in a dead body in 12 hours after death. This is going to be a first 10 marker, first long essay. So firstly, they're asking you about define thanatology. They want you to tell the definition of thanatology. So what is thanatology? It deals with death in all the aspects. So in and around death, it is a study of death, and in anything that happens in and around death in the various time frames that are available is called as thanatology. Okay. So there are 2 types. Okay. So basically one is a somatic death that occurs and one is a molecular death. Now let's see what is somatic death and what is a molecular death. Coming to the somatic death means complete and irreversible stoppage of circulation, respiration, and brain function. Bishop's triad of life. That is, there are 3 things that has to stop in order to call it a somatic death. What are those? Circulation, that is, blood flow is going to stop. Then there is a respiration that stops, and the brain function. When 3 of these stops, it's called as somatic death, and 3 of these are called as Bishop's triad of life. Then we have molecular death, where individual organ or tissues die. Okay, so remember that after somatic death, that is after the brain function, respiration, circulation stops, the organs are going to survive for some time. Okay, that is when called as supravital interval, or when the transplantation can be done. For heart, it is around 60 minutes. For liver, 15 minutes. Kidney, 45. Blood in bone marrow, 6 hours. So remember, for which organ it is the least? It is for liver. It is only around 15 minutes. Now coming to the early postmortem changes, initially we have the eye change, skin change, primary muscular flaccidity, that is muscular relaxation, contact flattening with pallor, agar mortis, postmortem lividity or postmortem staining, and rigor mortis. So these are the various changes, and I'll be explaining to you about all these changes in depth now. Okay. So what happens at the time of death? Eye seems to stare. That is, whenever you look at the person who is dead, you get that staring appearance, which is a little scary appearance. Why the person's eyes look scary? Because the pupils become fixed and they are also going to be dilated. Then after 10 seconds, what is going to happen? As you can see in the image, no, this blood vessels show stagnation of the blood, because of which in the center you can see that it is going to show empty. Okay, so this kind of picture is called as cattle tracking. The blood in the retinal vessels become dotted into segments, which is called as cattle tracking. Okay. After which, within certain hours, tachynoias are seen. What are tachynoias? If you look into this image, this triangular area that you see in both the sides of the eye, no, it is called as tachynoia, that is going to appear after a few hours. The other brown blackish discoloration due to formation of cellular debris and dust settling on the sclera. So remember, these are the waste material. The debris and the dust which settle on the sclera after a few hours is called as tachynoia. So what are the two changes in the eyes? Cattle tracking and tachynoia. After 12 hours after death, severe postmortem changes are typically observed. These include pallor mortis. So what do you understand by pallor mortis? The skin becomes pale due to cessation of the blood circulation. This happens shortly after death and is more noticeable after 12 hours. So pallor, what do you understand by pallor? What do you understand by pale? Basically, you have to understand that they're talking something about the color change. Usually when we say that somebody is looking pale, what do we mean? We mean that they look a little dull, not very pinkish. They have that dull appearance. So that is called as pallor. So pallor mortis means that dull appearance. Why is the entire body looking dull? Because the blood flow has been stopped. Therefore, it looks dull and it is most visible at 12 hours. Next, we have agar mortis. What is agar mortis? So, as I told you in the initial classes also, how you have to you should remember this. Arg. What is arg? Arg is fire. So, fire has to deal with temperature. No, it has something to do with temperature. Therefore, remember, agar mortis means the body temperature begins to drop because the body loses heat. Within 12 hours, the body will have cooled to a degree close to the ambient temperature. So remember the cooling of the body. At 12 hours, it is cooled so much. That is the significance of 12 hours. Okay, it is nothing but agar mortis. Let's see what are the other changes. We have rigor mortis. The body starts to stiffen. Rigor, rigorous, rigor, what is it? Stiffen as the muscles contract due to chemical changes in the muscle fiber. This also is going to start in 2 to 6 hours after death, but it is going to be fully developed at 12 hours. So after rigor mortis or the stiffening, what is the next change? Livor mortis, which is called as postmortem hypostasis. Okay, this is settling of the blood in the lower parts of the body due to gravity, leading to reddish purple discoloration. So livor basically means discoloration, and this discoloration, what is the color of the discoloration? It is going to be red to purple in color. At 12 hours, the lividity is usually well established, but it may still shift if the body is moved. After these, what are some other changes that are seen at 12 hours? Autolysis, that is the breakdown of the cells and tissues due to body's own enzymes. That is, our own enzymes in the body will start to break down the tissues in the body, and because these are our own enzymes, self enzymes, it's called as autolysis. Auto means self and lysis means breakdown. At 12 hours, this process is starting but may not be significantly visible, but it is going to start at 12 hours. Decomposition. Though it is more advanced in later stages, the beginning of decomposition can be noted in the form of mild bloating. So whenever a body undergoes decomposition, lots of gases are liberated. Okay, so these gases which are liberated gives body a bloating appearance. Okay, so at 12 hours, what are the changes that are seen? Repeat after me. Number one, pallor mortis. The body looks pale. because of the stoppage of blood flow. Next, we have rigor mortis, that is the stiffening or the contraction of the muscles will be noted at 12 hours. Then we have livor mortis, that is, there is going to be post-mortem staining where there is purplish red discoloration of the extremities because of pooling of the blood, especially because of gravity. Then, what are the other changes that are seen? Then we also have agar mortis. What is agar mortis? That is a color, that is a change in the temperature. That is basically the cooling that happens in the body is called as agar mortis. Then we have autolysis. Autolysis is self breakdown of the tissues by the enzymes from our body, and this autolysis will be well appreciated after 2 to 3 days, but it's going to start at 12 hours. Then we have decomposition, because of which a lot of gases are liberated, and this is going to give a mildly bloated appearance to the body. Got it? Now, coming to the second question is about brain death, criteria, and the medical legal importance of brain death. So firstly, we're asking you about brain death. No, that means you have to give the definition of the brain death. So what do you understand by the brain death? Brain death means irreversible loss of the brain and the brainstem function simultaneously. So brain has different functions in cognition, memory, sleeps, all different various cycles in the body. All is the function of brain. Brainstem also has certain functions, like for example, start and stop of respiration, start and stop of stomach function. So all these are the brainstem functions. So when both of these stop, it is called as brain death. It does not include the death of the cortical area. What are the cortical area? Various cortex, the lobes, no, all these death is not included. Okay. Now, coming to the somatic death, as we discussed in the previous question, there are two under the types of death. We have somatic death and molecular death. And I told you somatic death means the stoppage of the Bishop's stride of life. So what comprises Bishop's stride of life? That is stoppage of the circulation, stoppage of respiration, and stoppage of the brain function. When all these are going to stop, then it is called a somatic death. Even after that, the organs are going to be alive for some time, and that time is called as a supravital interval. And after this, organs are going to stop at a point, no? That is when we say that molecular death has occurred. And before the molecular death occurs, we can transplant the various organs or tissues. Okay. So what are the criteria for determining the permanent non-functioning of the brain? Number one, unreceptivity and unresponsivity. That is, whenever we give certain stimulus, for example, a pinch, a tickle, or a firm stroke on the skin or the shin of the person, there's not going to be any response or receptivity that is seen. No movements and breathing. There won't be any movement, there won't be respiration, there will be zero respiration. No reflexes. That is, for example, if you try to elicit a knee reflex, a patella reflex, or an ankle reflex, you're not going to see any of these reflex. And when you see the EEG, electroencephalogram, it is going to show a flat line, which is a confirmatory test for brain death. What are the modern criteria to diagnose death? Howard's criteria. It is followed in majority of the countries. The basis of the diagnosis is as follows. Non-receptive to stimuli, and there is no response. So as I told you, there is not going to be any response that is seen. So if you try to stroke the person, if you try to pinch the person, there won't be any response. No movement for 1 hour and no breathing. There won't be any voluntary movements of the hands or legs, and the breathing movement is also going to be absent. No spontaneous breathing for 3 minutes after switching off the artificial means. Like for example, if the person is on a ventilator, if you remove him or hook him off the ventilator, after 3 minutes, what happens? A lot of carbon dioxide is going to accumulate in the person, and because of which it goes and triggers the centers in the brain, and he's going to start respiration, and this happens in a normal person. But in a person with brain death, there is no initiation of spontaneous breathing after 3 minutes. Okay. All the reflexes like the patella reflex, ankle jerk, knee jerk, all these are going to be absent, and the EEG is going to be flat, which is a confirmatory test saying that the person is brain dead. So this is a simple question where they wanted you to answer in at point. Okay, you put these points, you're going to get the marks. Again, there is a short answer on brain death, types, and the medical legal importance. Now, coming to brain death, you have to understand, as I told you in the previous questions as well, it means irreversible loss of the brain and the brainstem functions simultaneously. It does not include death of cortical area. So, what are the functions of brain? As I told you, cognition, different cycles in the body, eating, drinking, learning, all these the functions of brain. And there should be stoppage of these functions as well as brainstem functions. What are the brainstem functions? Initiation of respiration, initiation of circulation. So all these centers are present in the brainstem. No? So when these also stop, it is called as brain death. So brain is responsible for all the coordination between the organs. Once brainstem death has established, no matter how healthy an individual, life will not return to the patient. That is why whenever a brain death is suspected in the person, you might look at the person. The person might look absolutely healthy. When you look at the person, you might feel like he's completely normal. He might just get up and walk the next day. But because his brain is dead, he cannot, no matter what you do, he cannot become normal. That is why doctors ask their kith and kin to donate the organ so that at least somebody else's life will be saved. Even with continuous cardiopulmonary support, complete loss of consciousness, absence of brain function or the reflexes. Because whatever you do, how much ever a cardiopulmonary support you give, whatever means you take, there won't be regain of consciousness. All the brainstem functions and reflexes are going to be absent. Coming to the next question, vagal inhibition. What do you understand by vagal inhibition? Vagal inhibition refers to the suppression or slowing down of physiological functions controlled by the vagus nerve. So there is this vagus nerve. Now, what is the number of vagus nerve? It's a cranial nerve. So this has a lot of functions in the body. Now, when the functions of the vagus nerve is stopped or inhibited, it is called as vagal inhibition. And this vagal nerve, is it the component of sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic? Remember, vagus nerve is a component of parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. Now, what happens? Heart rate reduction of bradycardia. The vagus nerve normally slows the heart rate. Vagal inhibition can reduce this effect, leading to increase in heart rate. So remember, vagal nerve, the actual function is to slow down everything. So it's going to slow down heart rate, respiration, everything. There is an actual function. It wants that calm, steady, laid back person. Okay, so that is why it's going to slow down. But when vagus is inhibited, there is going to be increase in the heart rate. That is, what do you see? You're going to see tachycardia. Or whenever heart rate is more, what else happens? There's going to be a lot of stress because of sympathetic activation. Normally, the vagal nerve is going to inhibit digestion, and because the vagus is inhibited, it suppresses the gastric acid secretion, motility enzyme release, potentially contributing to digestive issues and delayed gastric emptying. So the normal function of vagus is to fasten the process of digestion, but if vagus is inhibited, it is going to inhibit the release of gastric acid. The motility of the stomach is also decreased, or the enzyme is release is also hampered, therefore delaying in the gastric emptying. What are other functions? Respiratory rate modulation. That is, the vagal inhibition can also affect breathing patterns. Inhibition of the vagus nerve can result in faster or more shallower breathing. So as I told you, inhibition is going to increase heart rate and increase the respiratory rate. Normally, it is going to control the breathing and it is going to keep the breathing in the normal pattern. But when vagus is inhibited, the respiration becomes very fast. And when you're trying to take breaths very fast, it cannot be deep. It becomes very shallow. Okay. Coming to the next point, blood pressure regulation. Vagal inhibition may lead to increased blood pressure by removing this regulatory effect. So the blood pressure, the BP, is also going to rise if vagus is inhibited. Stress and anxiety response, acceleration of the heart rate, and other stress-related responses. So as I told you prior also, whenever heart rate increases, that means the sympathetic system has become active, and all the stress-related responses are going to become active. What about its role on immunological activity? Vagal inhibition could lead to increased inflammation in the body, which may have implications on conditions like chronic stress or autoimmune diseases. So, various researchers, they say that autoimmune diseases have a direct link with stress. Okay, and when vagus is inhibited, we know that stress is going to be activated. Therefore, all these autoimmune diseases could be increased. There could be increased inflammation in the body. Okay. Now to sum it up, vagal inhibition. What are the points? Number 1, increased heart rate. Number 2, increased respiratory rate. Number 3, increased blood pressure. Number 4, increased stress or increased sympathetic overactivity. Okay. Number 5, increase in inflammation or increase in the autoimmune disorders. Number 6. So remember, all the 5 things that we discussed now are going to be increased. There is one thing that decreases. What is that? That is digestion. Decrease in the digestive capacity or decrease in the emptying or gastric emptying. Why? Because this vagal inhibition has a negative impact on digestion. There is decreased release of enzymes. There is going to be decreased gastric motility, therefore delayed gastric emptying. So this is one question that you have to remember, and this can come as your medicine MCQ as well. Next question. Exhumation. So first you have to understand what is exhumation and what is the purpose of exhumation. Okay, so coming to the definition of exhumation, exhumation means it is lawful. Firstly, you understand it is done under law, and nothing is illegal here. Everything is done under law. Lawful digging of the dead body after it has been buried. Lawfully, when you dig the body that has already been buried, it is called as exhumation. So you might ask me, ma'am, after a body is buried, why do we have to dig it and take it out anyways? What is the purpose of exhumation? So exhumation is conducted for various reasons, okay, such as in criminal cases, historic or archaeological research, investigations to relocate the remains, or cultural and religious practices. So what happens? Imagine there is a person A and this person A dies. Okay. And then we have A dash who are the relatives of A. And imagine there was a foul play that was detected when A died. And then these people who are the kith and kin of A goes to the police station, gives complaint as well. And the police does investigation. And then nothing was found in the investigation and the case got closed. But later, this kith and kin of A, they feel that there is some person who is called as B who might be the potential person who caused the death of A. Then what will these relatives do? They'll go to the police station again and they'll say that they want a reinvestigation into the cause of death. Now the body is already been buried, no? So in order to find out what has happened, there's going to be exhumation that is done. Okay, so this is one example where exhumation could be done. So there are certain legal as well as ethical considerations also whenever we try to do exhumation. Exhumation typically requires permission from the legal authorities and adherence to specific regulations. So always, as I told you, it is lawful digging. Lawful means the person who is digging has taken permission. So it is lawfully done. Got it? Now, what is the scientific and forensic relevance for the same? In forensic science, exhumation can reveal critical information about the cause of death, injury, and historic data through DNA analysis, pathology, and other methods. So basically, you understand that various data can be collected even in the body that has already been buried. What are the environmental and health concerns? The process must be handled with care to prevent contamination or exposure to pathogens. Now, for example, remember, if there is a lot of exposure to pathogens, there might be fastening in the process of degradation and there may not be much clues left. Professionals often follow strict guidelines to ensure the safety of the team involved. And remember, if there are a lot of visitors, a lot of spectators, the place where we are doing exhumation must be screened off. And this entire exhumation should be done in one day itself. Like morning, if you start, you're going to finish the exhumation the same day. And whenever you suspect that there is some, metal poisoning, then when you do exhumation, you have to also preserve some part of soil or earth, like half kg, in order to do examination on it and find out what is a potential material or the metal that was there as poisoning agent. Okay. Now coming to the next question, it is about viscera preservation. So how do you preserve viscera? It is, you're going to preserve various parts. Okay, so there are two things. One, we'll be discussing only about viscera preservation, and then we'll also look at what embalming is. Okay, so when we have to do viscera preservation, so viscera preservation is done whenever we suspect a death is occurring because of poisoning. So whenever there is poisoning, what are the organs that we preserve? We preserve liver, we are going to preserve kidney, we are going to preserve either one entire kidney or half from each kidney. We are going to preserve intestine. How much of the intestine? Around 30 centimeters of the intestine. We're going to preserve the stomach, that is the entire stomach along with its contents. We're also going to preserve urine and blood. So all these are put in different containers, and as we are going to put preserving solution, how much preserving solution do you put? Just enough to cover the topmost surface of these organs. Okay, so what is the most common preservative that is used? Nothing but the sodium chloride, saturated solution of salt, NaCl. This is something that we use often. Okay, this is for viscera preservation. When do we do viscera preservation? Whenever we suspect that the death occurred because of poisoning. Okay. Next part, we'll be discussing about embalming. So what is the definition of embalming? It is a process of preservation of the dead body by artificial mummification. So when a natural mummy forms, how does a mummy look like? If you've seen an image, it looks all shrunken, withered. The body is going to be very small. That is how a mummy appears. Like now, when we artificially try to create a mummy, it's called as embalming. And how do we do it? We do it by injecting certain fluids in the dead body. Okay. And what are the fluids? We usually use formaldehyde, solutions of arsenic, lead sulfide, and potassium carbonate. And formaldehyde is the most important one that you have to remember. What are the others? Solutions of arsenic, lead sulfide, and potassium carbonate. The usual site of injection. Where do we inject this fluid? Either in the femoral artery, neck arteries, or aorta. Remember, we are going to inject it in the bigger arteries. Which bigger artery? Either a femoral artery, neck artery, or even the aorta. What is the objective of embalming? The process is adopted for in medical colleges to preserve dead body for purpose of dissection. So as a first year MBBS student, what was your favorite part in anatomy? I think at least half the people would say that dissection, no? And while you went and dissected those bodies, when you touched those bodies and saw, you might have noticed that it was very hard on touch. Why was it very hard? Because it was artificially mummified by the process of embalming, so that it could help all the medical students to understand the anatomy of the body, to understand how the muscles run, how the veins run, how different organs are arranged in the body. Where dead bodies have to be taken from one country to another for burial. Whenever you have to take dead body from one country to another country for burial, even then you will inject fluids to make it very hard, that is, you embalm the body. The tissues of the bodies are hardened and preserved. So usually if you see in the museum of the medical colleges, there are a lot of organs that are saved, no? So how do they save these organs? By embalming them. So these are the objectives of embalming. So how do you embalm a body? The methods involve putting a cannula into an artery and injecting the preserving fluid. So where do you put the cannula into an artery? As I told you, the bigger arteries are chosen. So what are the bigger arteries? Either the femoral or the neck arteries or the aorta. And then you inject the embalming fluid, which contains formaldehyde. The presence of the fluid prevents growth of microorganisms and swells the features of the body. So whatever detailing is there, that is seen more properly when you embalm the body. The embalming will destroy any evidence. Therefore, in case of poisoning, you have to remove the specimen, like whatever you want to preserve. As I told you, the viscera preservation, you have to remove it prior. Only after that, you have to embalm the body, because whenever you embalm the body, all the details will be lost. Coming to the next question, we'll see the difference between mummification and adipose here. Okay, so coming to mummification, as you can see in the image here, now this is how typically the Egyptian mummies looked like. So these Egyptians, why did they mummify their body? You could have seen the Egyptian pyramids. So why do they do it? Because in belief that in the future some technology might come up which could bring these dead body into living. That's why they put all these body there and made them into mummies. You can see the body, no, it looks withered, it looks shriveled, it looks dark in color. This is how a mummy looks like. Okay, there's going to be dehydration or desiccation of the body tissue and viscera after death. So when all the water is lost from the tissues, it's going to have that dry, crumpled appearance. Okay, the ideal conditions for its formation are high atmospheric temperature, because whenever the temperature is going to be high, there's going to be loss of water, or there's going to be dehydration, devoid of moisture. If there is any moisture, then it won't dry and become desiccated. No, therefore it should be devoid of moisture, free circulation of air. The surface of the body, there should be free circulation of air. So when all these conditions are there, a mummy can be formed. So what are the essential features of a mummy? Skin is going to be dry, shrunken, leathery. The color is going to be rusty, brown or black, adhering to the bones. Soft parts shrivel up but retain the natural appearances and features. So as you can see the mummy here, if you look at the mummy, you can say that this is the human body, these are the hands, this is the face, eyes, nose, mouth. That is, they're saying that it retains its identity. Like you can identify what the how different organs are, the natural appearances are there, but they become little shriveled up. Okay, and internal organs also become dried mass-like structure. Understood? This is how a mummy looks like. So coming to the what are the factors affecting mummification? There should be free circulation of air, there should be high temperature, there should be absence of any moisture, because whenever the second and third point is not sufficient, that means that it won't support dehydration. Okay, and how much is the time required for formation of mummy? It is around 3 to 12 months. This much time is required for the formation of a mummy. What is the medical legal importance? It indicates time elapsed since death. So how much time has elapsed since death? Around 3 to 12 months, because this is the time that is required for the formation of mummy. Like for example, if you see a mummy, you can say that the body has been dead for more than a year. This is a vague conclusion that you can draw if mummy has been formed. It indicates cause of death. It establishes identity of a person. How it could establish identity of the person? Because I told you that the natural outlines are going to be maintained, only that it is going to be a little crumpled up or shriveled in nature. And it indicates a burial site. Like for example, in the site, if it had high temperature, free flow of air, and no moisture, that is when a mummy could be formed. This is what you have to know about mummy. Okay. Coming to the second part of the question, it asked about adipose hair formation. So what are the other names of adipose hair? This is something that you have to know, and I'll tell you why. Okay. It is also called as saponification or grave or mortuary bags, because in your 3-marker or in your MCQ, if they just give saponification, you just don't be like, oh my god, did I really study this in forensic medicine? Remember that this is one of the other names of adipose hair. What are the other names apart from saponification? It is also called as grave bags or mortuary bags. So adipose hair is a formation of the soft, whitish, crumbly or the greasy material in the soft tissue of the body after death. If you can see the image here, this whitish, rancid looking thing that is formed on the body, no? Whenever this is formed, then we can say that adipose hair has been formed. It is yellowish white, greasy, wax-like substance with a rancid smell. So what do you understand by rancid smell? If you have smelled spoiled oil or small butter that has been spoiled, that is how a rancid smell looks like. Mechanism: Clostridium welchii initiate the process of hydrolysis and hydrogenation of body fats. This enzyme, Clostridium welchii, this bacteria is going to act on the fats that are there in the body and cause hydrolysis of this fat and hydrogenation of this fat, which in turn makes it rancid and greasy appearance. Okay. Unsaturated liquid fats convert to saturated solid fats by bacterial fat splitting enzyme. So finally, when you see this adipose here, you have to remember that whatever fat is there, it is the saturated fat that is there, because all the unsaturated fat has been converted into the saturated fat. Once formed, it is relatively permanent. Okay, so this is what you have to remember about adipose here. So after how many weeks does adipose hair formation start? So usually after death, adipose hair formation starts in 2 to 3 weeks. It might take a few months for the adipose hair formation to complete. What are the conditions facilitating adipose hair formation? Moisture. It is a prerequisite for adipose hair formation. Warm temperature, lack of air. There should not be any free flow of air. If there is free flow of air, it's going to remove all the moisture. No? So you shouldn't have any air circulation, and bacteria should be present, which is a bacteria that is Clostridium welchii has to be present, and it is going to facilitate the invasion of endogenous bacteria. Okay, so what are the different conditions that has to be there for the adipose hair formation? Number one, moisture, lot of moisture. Number two, warm temperature. Number three, no air or lack of air. Number four, bacteria, which will further help the invasion of a lot of endogenous bacteria, which will form adipose hair. What is the medical legal importance of adipose hair? It indicates time elapsed since death. Because as I told you, the formation of adipose hair starts in 2 to 3 weeks, and it takes a few months for the process to complete. It establishes the identity of a person. It indicates the burial place as well. Okay, because if this burial place was a place where there was no airflow, where there was a lot of moisture and warm temperature, this is going to facilitate the formation of adipose hair. Got it? So this is how you have to know about both mummification and adipose hair. These not only can come as 3 markers. See here in this 3 marker, both were asked. No? So if you had written half the content that I told you also, it would be enough. It would suffice you to get entire marks. But if they ask individually, these are the points that you have to mention to get out of out. Okay. Coming to the next question, differences between rigor alga mortis, lever mortis, and cadaveric spasm. Okay. So I'll be telling you about the differences in 5 points. Okay. Firstly, let's see what is the definition. Alga mortis. As I told you, arg. What is arg? Fire. That means something to do with temperature. So alga mortis means cooling of the body after death. Rigor mortis. What do you understand by rigor mortis? Stiffening of the muscles due to biochemical changes. Rigor, rigorous, strong, strength, stiffening. Okay, that is how you have to remember rigor mortis. Nothing but stiffening of the muscles due to biochemical changes. Then we have cadaveric spasm, which is sudden and intense muscular contraction at death. See, whenever death happens, and it is such a death where there won't be any time frame. Okay, like for example, if a person shot himself, there is so much emotional outburst that the muscles can go into something called as cadaveric spasm. Now coming to timing. So when does alga mortis begin? Begins immediately after death and continues for several hours. Whereas rigor mortis, that is stiffening, is going to begin 2 to 6 hours after death, and it's going to peak, or the maximum rigor mortis or stiffening is seen at 12 hours. Coming to cadaveric spasm, occurs immediately or shortly after death. Okay. Coming to the affected area in alga mortis, affects the entire body. That is, the cooling occurs in the entire body. Coming to rigor mortis, affects specific muscle groups starting from the small muscles. That is, the small muscles are going to be affected first, then the medium sized, and the last that is going to stiffening of the bigger muscles. Coming to cadaveric spasm, affects specific muscle groups. Example, hands and forearms. Like for example, if the person has taken the pistol and shot himself, usually the rigor mortis is seen only in the forearm or the hand muscles. Okay, that is how cadaveric spasm is seen. Or somebody who suddenly pushed into water dies, this is grabbed all the gravel and all the weed around. There's going to be the cadaveric spasm seen in his hand muscles. Coming to the next point, cause. What is the cause of alga mortis? Loss of body heat due to cessation of metabolism. So when metabolism stops, all the functioning stops, there won't be any heat that is produced in the body, because of which there is going to be cooling of the body. Rigor mortis. What is the cause of rigor mortis? Lack of ATP leads to muscle contraction. So what happens normally in the muscle? There's going to be contraction, relaxation, that is happening in sequence. And after the muscle contracts, after the actin and myosin filaments contracts, we need energy. We need the breakdown of the ATP to release energy for them to separate. Now, if we do not have, why don't we have ATP? Because all the metabolic functions of the body has stopped. So no ATP. If no ATP, that means these actin and myosin cannot separate. They are in the form of muscle contraction. Got it? Coming to the cause of cadaveric spasm, intense emotional or physical stress at the time of death. So as I told you, if a person has to have so much guts to take a pistol and shoot himself, he might have a lot of emotional stress or a physical stress that is going on, because of which there could be contraction or intense muscular contraction, specific muscle groups like smaller muscles like hands or forearm. And coming to the last point, the differences between all these. What is the duration of rigor mortis? Can last several hours up to a day. Coming to rigor mortis of the stiffening, lasts for 1 day or 2 days. That is 24 to 48 hours, after which it is going to dissipate or break down. Coming to the duration of cadaveric spasm, usually lasts minutes to hours, ends when the rigor mortis sets in. Okay, so this cadaveric spasm is going to be there for only few minutes to an hour at the max. Okay. Coming to the next question, the question is about suspended animation, which is also called as apparent death. Suspended animation meaning apparent death. That means he is not actually dead, but he looks like he is dead. This is the meaning of suspended animation. Apparently dead. It is the condition in which the vital functions of the body, like for example, heartbeat and respiration, are at such a low pitch they cannot be detected by routine methods of clinical examination. Like basically you're going to see two things, okay? That is, you're going to see the circulatory system or the heart rate and the respiratory system for the respiratory rate. These two are present, but they're present in such a low pitch or such a low intensity that you might presume that the person is dead. Okay. What are the different types under these? You have involuntary suspended animation as well as voluntary. Coming to involuntary, that is seen in the drowned person. It is seen in newborn. That is, they're not doing it under will. It just happens so. After anesthesia, when all the reflexes have become very slow, whenever the person has a cerebral concussion, whenever there is electrocution, heat stroke, mesmeric trance, or prolonged illness. These are the involuntary cases where suspended animation is seen. And coming to the voluntary cases, it is seen in yogis. So if you know Sadhguru, no? Who is Sadhguru? He is none but the founder of Isha Foundation. Okay, so this person is very famous. No, so this person's wife is presumed to be dead because she voluntarily withheld her functioning of the body. Okay, so a lot of yogis, they do this, but they voluntarily stop their breathing and circulation. Okay, so we've come to the end of the class today, and I want to give you 1 or 2 tips for your exam. Okay, so in the previous classes also I've given you tips, and number 1 tip was to answer the 3 markers and to focus more on 3 markers over the 10 marker, because as I told you, if there are 10 3 markers totally, they're going to give you 30 marks and it is going to take less time to answer. And these 2 10 markers that are there are going to take like around 40 to 50 minutes, and they're going to give you only 20 marks. And that too, but when it comes to scoring, you can get only 14 to 15 marks, because this is how much a teacher gives you. That is why focus on 3 markers first. You answer those first, then go to a 10 marker. What was the second point that I told you? The second point was to time your answers. Because when you time your answers, you know exactly how much time you have to give for each question. For a 10 marker, you have to give only 10 to 15 minutes, max 20 minutes. For 5 marker, you have to give only 5 to 8 minutes. And for a 3 marker, you can give only 3 to 5 minutes. So if you follow these, you can do your exams on time, and you will not come out of exam hall complaining that, ma'am, I had time shortage. Okay, these are the 2 things. And the third thing is that you have to put lots of images and flowcharts in your diagram. So why flowcharts? Because imagine there is a question for a 3 marker and you have to write a page of answer. Like they have left the entire page for you to answer, but you know hardly 3 points about it. And you know that if you start writing, you can finish it off in 4 to 5 lines. And you know that it is going to look very little or very tiny for the answer. So in such cases, you put a flowchart and answer this, so that you not only save time, your paper looks more presentable, and also these little points that you know will be covered in the entire page, which will give a sense of presumption to the examiner that you really know a lot about the topic. Okay, so these are the points that you can follow in your exam. And in all these revision classes that I'm doing for forensic medicine, I'll be giving you 1 or 2 small tips like this for your exams, so that you can increase your scoring. Because a lot of students I know are really working hard, are really studying, but they're not able to get marks because they don't know how to put it in the paper. And I am here to help you exactly here. I hope you enjoyed this class. We'll be meeting you all with more and more classes like this where we'll be discussing the most important questions. Thanks for watching.